Themselves last night and got a lot of sleep and is well hydrated today. It's my great honor today to be able to introduce my old friend, Michael Martin Murphey. Or as we used to call him, Michael Murphey, before he added Martin. Murphy and I go back to 1971, early 1971. That's how long we've known each other and been great friends. And at that time, we were in Hollywood. I was doing album covers for Capitol Records, and Murphy was a songwriter at Screen Gems. So I was going to the art department, and he was going to a room with a piano in it and writing songs, and had written and published more than 400 songs before he ever recorded. That's pretty amazing foundation for a songwriter. We always had a great love of the West, and it was something that we really saw in each other. He was from Texas, I was from San Francisco, and somehow those worlds met in Hollywood. He started recording not long after that, and I did some of the album covers. I did the first and many after that. One of the big projects that we worked on just before that was a double album that Kenny Rogers and the First Edition recorded called The Ballad of Calico, about a small town in the Mojave Desert, Calico. And Murphy wrote this long opera consisting of about 23 or 4 songs about characters in this town. And it's still, to this day, a real gem that hopefully will someday be recorded and produced. Skip forward a few years, and I had been living in Europe, been living in Ireland, specifically, and was invited out to the first Cowboy Poetry Gathering about 4 days before it happened, and I couldn't go, but I did come to the second. And as soon as I went home, the first call I made was to Murphy. And I said, there's an amazing thing happening out here in the Oahe Desert in Elko, Nevada, and you need to be part of it. And he has never missed one since. This event, now in its 30th anniversary, has changed all of our lives. And it has given us a foundation for a way to make a living, and it's also created a community of which you are all part of it. So it's my great pleasure to welcome my great old friend, Michael Martin Murphey.
Thank you, Willie. It's really true. I would never have made this party if it hadn't been for Willie inviting me to it. And it changed my life. My life hasn't been the same since. It brought me to realize that even though I had been singing cowboy music since I started playing the guitar and ukulele at 6 years old, I had mostly been a pop singer and a country singer and just collected cowboy music. And I had a big collection, and I put the sheet music on the wall, and I'd listen to the records. And every once in a while, I'd put a cowboy song into my show. But I realized when I first came here that there were other people out there who were keeping this thing alive within themselves, but didn't have a lot of other friends in it. And suddenly we realized we were a family of people who not only loved the Western lifestyle and point of view of the American West and revered that culture, the Indians, the cowboys, the whole rainbow of it, but that also were performing it and still writing it and doing it. And So that changed my life. It wasn't until many years later that I made a Cowboy Songs album. So the first gatherings that I came to, I was just sticking in what Cowboy songs that I had worked up or that I remembered from being a camp counselor singing around the campfire at age 16 at a Christian youth camp called Sky Ranch in Louisville, Texas. My job was to teach kids how to ride horses, and then we brought in the parents on the weekends, and by then the kids considered their parents the dudes. And we would sit around and sing cowboy songs for the parents, who were the dudes at the dude ranch, and the old cowboys who were 7, 8, 9 years old were sitting around chewing bubble gum instead of tobacco. One of the songs that I learned back then, thanks to my upbringing and my grandparents and my uncles and aunts, was this song. And it was the first song I sang at the Cowboy Poetry Gathering. When I came on the third gathering, I missed the first two. He invited me after having seen the second one, then I came to the third. So I thought I'd start here. I don't want to I'm going to do kind of an autobiographical show today, but I don't want to forget and leave this one out. This is the first one I sang here, and it was when Hal Cannon said, I was just here as a guest. I wasn't on the show. And he said, get out there and sing. And so I got out and sat down by the imitation campfire that they had out there that year and sang this song. Spanish is a loving tongue, soft as springtime, light as spray. There was a girl I learned it from, living down Sonora way. Now I don't look much like a lover, yet I say her love word's over. Late at night when I'm all alone, mi amor, mi corazón. There were nights when I would ride, she would listen for my spurs. She'd fling that big door open wide, raise those laughing eyes of hers. And how those hours would get to flying. Pretty soon you'd hear her crying, please don't leave me all alone. Mi amor, mi corazón. Then one time I had to fly, got myself into a foolish gamble. gambling fight. I had to say a swift goodbye in that black, unlucky night. And traveling north, her words kept ringing. Pretty soon, in every hoofbeat, I could hear her saying, please don't leave me all alone. Mi amor, mi corazón. I've never seen her since that night. I can't cross the border, you know. She is Mexican and I am white. Like as not, it's better so. And yet I've always sort of missed her since that very first night I kissed her. I left her heart, lost my own. Adios, mi corazón. That's not really a very good song, classic show business wise, to start off with. It kind of puts you to sleep, but over the years I've enjoyed being a ballad singer, and I appreciate God giving me the talent to be able to put people to sleep. I figure there's enough music to keep you nerve jangled all the time, so if I can cause you to relax a little bit, you know, not a bad thing. Although at 11 o'clock in the morning, might want to do a fast one, so I'll make this next one a fast one. I'm going to back up to the beginning of my career. I started writing songs when I was a teenager. I realized I couldn't make a living at that in Texas at the time, so I transferred to UCLA, and while I was a UCLA student living in West Hollywood, I started writing songs for a living. I was paid $100 a week by Sparrow Music, which is owned by Randy Sparks, who had the New Christy Minstrels, to write songs. And Randy's still kicking, by the way. He's in Northern California and has a ranch up there. And if it hadn't been for Randy giving me a songwriter's contract, I would not have been able to make it at all. But it was an advance against royalties. It wasn't just a straight salary. So you had to get a song recorded sooner or later. And then when you did, every salary dollar that you got was deducted from your royalty statement. So, you know, I had a hard time getting my songs recorded in the beginning. And it wasn't until Another guy who was kind of in the Randy Sparks fold a little bit, he played at a nightclub called Ledbetter's that Randy Sparks had in Westwood. He was in a Chad Mitchell trio, and he split off, changed his name from John Duchendorf to John Denver. And he recorded one of my songs, and the first song I ever had come out on a record was on John Denver's album. And it is, Willie used the word foundation several times. This sets the foundation of what my career has been about. I think there's a whole lot to be said for the wisdom of people who come from the country. I got that from my relatives who were farmers and ranchers. They were not necessarily college educated, but they knew a whole lot more than us college educated kids did about real life. So I wrote this song as a tribute to people who were country boys. And some of the people that founded world religions were not necessarily country boys, but they got there as fast as they could. If you remember, Buddha goes out and sits underneath a banyan tree, and that's where he gets his enlightenment. He's from a royal family. Same thing, Jesus is in a royal line of birth, and everybody who felt like he was the Messiah recognized that, but he had a humble upbringing, knew an awful lot about herding animals, and his father was also a carpenter. Starting off with the basic tenet of every cowboy, you got to have 2 jobs to make it. And Muhammad, the same thing, went out of his way to spend time in the wilderness. If you remember, all these prophets, all these founders of world religions, where do they go to get their enlightenment or to plug directly into God? They go out into the wilderness, as Jesus did for 40 days and 40 nights before he realized fully what his role would be. St. Francis also came from a royal family of merchants. It was actually a rich family, not a royal family, but a wealthy family of merchants in Italy. And he was the inspiration for this song. I really wrote this specifically about him because 800 years ago, he took a vow of poverty at a time when it wasn't cool to do that in the church. He went off in a sack with, it was like a potato sack, really, with a rope tied around it and sandals, and went out into the wilderness. And his entire Franciscan order is founded on the idea of no material possessions and finding nature to be the inspiration to find God. Because he called the forest brother, because he called the earth his mother. They drove him out into the rain, and some people even said that the boy from the country was insane, because he spoke with fish in the creek. He tried to tell us that the animals can speak, and who knows, maybe they do. How do you know they don't? Just because they've never spoken to you. Boy from the country left his home when he was young. Boy from the country, he loves the sun. He tried to tell us that we should love the land. We just turned our heads and laughed. You see, we did not understand. But you know, sometimes I think boy from the country must be the only one who sees. Because the boy from the country doesn't want to see the forest. He'd rather see the trees. Boy from the country left his home when he was young. Boy from the country, he loves the sun. So country roads, take me home to the place I belong. Has anybody here seen my old friend John? Can you tell me where he's gone? When John died, hallelujah, by and by, John just flew away. Even though I went to California against my parents' wishes, I stayed in touch with Texans while I was out there. You know, like you do when you go to a strange place, you look up people that know about where you used to be. And even here at the gathering, especially here at the gathering, you'll see people doing that. Oh, you're from Idaho, you're from Texas, you know. I used to live over there, I got a daughter in that town. Well, I stayed in touch with a friend who came to a coffee house that I performed in when I was a teenager, back in the era when I was writing those songs. I brought those songs with me. I didn't write them while I was under contract. I brought a lot of stuff with me that I already written. And this was one of them. And a guy that I stayed in touch with was Michael Nesmith. And Michael Nesmith and I were in a band together in Los Angeles called the New Survivors, which was a farm team for the New Christy Minstrels. He had 3 or 4 bands, you know, when somebody left the Minstrels, then he would replace them. It's amazing some of the people that were in the Christy Minstrels. Kenny Rogers was a member. Oh gosh, Glenn Campbell was in it for a while. That goes on and on. Anyway, we were in this band rehearsing, and everybody was a starving songwriter. I was the only one that had had a little bit of success with my John Denver recording. And Nesmith said, you know, I'm tired of being a starving songwriter. I'm going to go audition for this television series that they're advertising in Variety, that they want musicians who can act. He said, well, I don't know how to act, but I'm going to go fool them. And he did. And two other guys that were in that same band ended up in the Monkees. And so after the first couple of albums, Michael called me up and said, I'm going to do a country song with the Monkees, and they're fighting me tooth and nail on it. They don't want us to do it. He said, so I'm going to get Doug Dillard to play banjo on it, and we're going to do one of your songs. We're going to do it really bluegrass style. So he recorded this, and I'm just telling you all this because I've always been a Westerner in my music. I consider myself a songwriter about the West. And I love the whole darn thing, but especially the trains that go through the West. Just a loudmouth Yankee, I went down to Mexico. I didn't have much time to spend, about a week or so. I lightly took advantage there of a girl who loved me so. Found myself a-thinking when my time had come to go. What am I doing hanging around? I should be on the train and gone. I should be riding on that train to San Antonio. What am I doing hanging around? Took me to the garden just for a little walk. Well, I didn't know much Spanish and there was no time for talk. She told me that she loved me not with words but with a kiss. Found myself a-thinking of some old train I could not miss. What am I doing hanging around? I should be on the train and gone. I should be riding on that train to San Antonio. What am I doing hanging around? It's been a year or so and I want to go back again. And if I had the money, I'd ride the same old train. But I guess your chances come but once, and I sure have missed mine. Find myself a-thinking when I hear some whistle cry. What am I doing hanging around? I should be on the train and gone. I should be riding on that train to Mexico. What am I doing hanging The first country artist to record one of my songs was a wonderful guy who still plays on the Grand Ole Opry named George Hamilton IV. It's not the George Hamilton, you know, that had the tan that was on the talk shows. It's not that guy. Anyway, this is a song I also wrote before I got to be a songwriter in Los Angeles. I was trying as hard as I could to come up with hits in the Tin Pan Alley kind of world. And ironically, the songs that I had written before I got that job were the ones that always got recorded. Like John Huston, the great director, once said, the songs that the movies that I made for money ended up being my masterpieces, and the movies that I made from the heart ended up being my failures. It was the other way around for me. Anyway, I wrote this when I was 16, I think. My dad loaned me his car. It was a Chevrolet. And I went to a gig playing for a hayride in West Texas. I was driving down a West Texas highway, saw a hitchhiker, he was going my way. He didn't look suspicious and he didn't look any too clean. Put on my brakes and I opened my door. Could tell he was a bum by the muddy boots he wore. He said, I'm going down to Haskell. I got a woman down in Abilene. He said, East Texas is where I come from. I was working for a rodeo. Sure got ho-hum, so I'm traveling around, and a whole lot of Texas I've seen. I'm mighty glad you were going my way. Your brand new clothes and a great big Chevrolet. I'm going down to Haskell. I've got a woman down in Abilene. He was grinning like a possum and a mighty happy rascal, and he waved goodbye when I let him out in Haskell. And that's about the last of that road tramp I ever have seen. But I'm still wishing to this very day he had my clothes and my big Chevrolet, and it was me going to Haskell with a woman down in Abilene. I'm still wishing to this very day that he had my clothes and my big Chevrolet, and it was me going to Haskell with a woman down in Abilene. Well, as I moved along through the songwriting deal, I did finally get a few of those songs written under contract, recorded, but it wasn't a satisfying situation. I was literally going into a cubicle every day from 8 o'clock to 6 o'clock in Hollywood and sitting down and writing songs. It was good training. I'm not putting it down. There were people who wrote incredible music in that setting. I was not one of them. Carole King, Jerry Goffin, Mann and Weil, Barry Mann and Cynthia Weil, Neil Diamond. These were all people that were signed to the same publishing company as me, and they were writing songs right down the street. They had all come down from New York after Don Kirshner decided that he'd rather live in California than New York, and he moved his whole company out there. Don, by the way, was the guy, if you remember, who produced the Monkees. So we were all writing songs for all these different artists, but I was writing some songs that, other artists just didn't want to do. They were too personal. And I finally had to leave California and go back to Texas. And that's where I got my first record deal, when a guy named Bob Johnston walked into a coffee house I played in and heard me play, and he said, I want to sign you to a record deal, and I want to bring you out to record. And Bob Johnston, it turned out to be Bob Dylan's producer, Leonard Cohen's producer, Simon and Garfunkel's producer, and Flatt and Scruggs' producer. What really impressed me was Flatt and Scruggs. And the fact that he made the Folsom Prison album, which is Johnny Cash's greatest record, in my opinion. So I said, great, when do we record? When do we start? He said, as soon as you can get there. Well, I borrowed that same Chevrolet of my dad's, which he held on to, and drove all night long that night to Nashville. I called up Johnston when I got there, having driven straight through, and he said, Murphey, what are you doing here? I said, you said we're going to do an album as soon as I could get here, so here I am. Well, he drug himself out of bed, went down to Studio A at Columbia, and we started making the record. And the way he made the record was something I love to share with audiences, because, you think we go in and we carefully craft all these albums. Bob was known for getting an artist in, like Bob Dylan, and saying, Bob, just play your songs. Just play them. And Dylan in particular was a fanatic about just going in and playing the song one time and leaving in all the mistakes. It didn't matter. And he left a lot of mistakes in. And Bob could not really ever hit notes. He never had perfect pitch. I think we all know that. And he would just go in and sing them, and if he didn't sing in tune, it didn't matter to him. He just wanted to get the song out there and get that feeling that you have the first time you record it. So that was Bob's philosophy. So he said, Murph, just go out there. I had my bass player, Bob Livingston, with me. He said, play the songs that you do solo and play the songs that Bob plays bass on, and we'll make a demo. And then we'll figure out what we're going to do from there. So I recorded 35 songs that day. Man, was I sick at the end of that. I had no voice. And I went back to Texas, and I called up Bob and said, well, what do we do now? When do we make the real record? What have you decided to do? He said, you just made it. He said, we're going to add everything else. I said, how do you do that? He said, well, it's multi-track recording. We can add other stuff on. So he did, and that was my first album, Geronimo's Cadillac. And Gary Nunn, who was in the Cosmic Cowboys, Bob Livingston, who was in the Cosmic Cowboy band in Austin, and Leonard Arnold, a whole bunch of people, Herb Steiner, my old partner in crime, Boomer Castleman, were all pickers on that album. Because Bob didn't like necessarily going with the studio musicians either. So this is the song that was the defining song of that album. And it also changed my life, and I'll tell you why later. these Indians had no place to go. Took old Geronimo by storm, ripped off the feathers from his uniform. Jesus, tell me and I believe it's true. Red man, yellow man, black man, brown man, and the sunset too. Ripped off the land, won't give it back. Sent Geronimo a Cadillac. I said, whoa, boys, take me back. Let me ride in Geronimo's Cadillac. Let me ride, take me back. Let me ride in Geronimo's Cadillac. Whoa, boys, take me back. Let me ride in Geronimo's Cadillac. Whoa, boys, take me back. Let me ride in Geronimo's Cadillac. That song was considered what they called a protest song back then. It was banned in Boston. Everything's banned in Boston. And it was banned in Houston too, and a number of other cities. Because even as recently as 1972, when the album came out, to say nice things about Indian people wasn't cool, particularly if you were talking about their rights. There's still a lot of work to be done, but thankfully things have changed a little bit. So now we can do it in public. They might still ban it in some places. So won't you join me and sing for our Indian brothers and sisters? Whoa, boys, take me back. I want to ride in Geronimo's Cadillac. Whoa, boys, take me back. I want to ride in Geronimo's Cadillac. You sound sleepy. Whoa, boys, take me back. I want to ride in Geronimo's Cadillac. Let me ride, take me back. I want to ride in Geronimo's Cadillac. Woo. As a result of putting that song out, I was adopted into the Lakota Nation 20 years ago. As a medicine man told me at the time, listen, this is not an award. We now consider you to have Indian blood. And he says there's a dark side of that too. What you know, what you know, hey, 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 I told my dad, if I get adopted into the Lakota Nation, that means I have an Indian dad too. Is that okay? He said, yep, it's okay as long as you still root for the Cowboys. and the Mavericks. Burial grounds and merry-go-rounds are all the same to me. Horses on posts and kids and ghosts, they're spirits we ought to set free. Them city liquor pickers, I got a lot of slicker licks than me. But riding the range and acting strange is where I wanna be. I just wanna be a cosmic cowboy. Hey, I just wanna ride in a roping hood. I just wanna be a cosmic cowboy. Wanna be a supernatural country rockin' balloon. Lone Star sipping and skinny dipping and steel guitars and stars. Just as good as Hollywood and those boogie-woogie disco bars. I'm gonna find me a vest and head out west, little lady and myself. When we come to town, they're gonna gather around and marvel at our belt buckles. Hey, I just wanna be a cosmic cowboy. Hey, I just wanna ride in a roping hood. I just wanna be a cosmic cowboy. I wanna be a supernatural country rockin' balloon. Now the big raccoons and the harvest moons keep rolling through my mind. And a home on the range where the antelope play is pretty damn hard to find. Don't you bury me on the lone prairie, I'd rather play an Elko live. I'm headed out west and I'm doing my best to keep my little Bronco in four-wheel drive. Hey, I just wanna be a cosmic cowboy. Hey, I just wanna ride in a roping hood. Hey, I just wanna be a cosmic cowboy. Wanna be a supernatural country rockin' balloon. And up is not the way I'm gonna shoot. But after 5 years in Austin, I decided to move to Colorado because there's something in me that always gets restless when you're with the trend instead of against it. I think if you're not being a maverick and not being a renegade, it just doesn't work in Michael Martin Murphey's world. I agree with what Clint Eastwood said. He said, as soon as anything becomes a trend, I run the other way. And it was the music that we made in Texas at that time was a maverick thing when it started, but then it got to be so nationally popular that record companies were coming in, and there were people from Massachusetts who were coming in and saying, I'm a Texas guy, you know. Yeah, I'm a Texas musician, you know. And at that point, I decided to pack up and leave. There were also some personal things that were going on in my life. But I'll leave that for the objective biographer. You won't find it in my autobiography. So this is I was having one hit song on the charts after another, and then I hit this third album that I wrote around the time I moved to Colorado. And the people in Texas thought I was abandoning Texas. And if you're a Texan, you just don't do that. Mama don't like that when you leave Texas. She didn't like it when I went to California, and she didn't like it when I went to Colorado. So she pretty much figured I was going to become a communist if I went anywhere else. Boy, was she right. I should have stayed in Texas. But there's something about those mountains that had been in my soul ever since my dad took me fishing in Rocky Mountain National Park when I was 5 years old. I knew I was headed there someday. And I doubt that I'll leave the Rocky Mountains now for the rest of my life. But I do live in the part of the Rocky Mountains that used to be in the Republic of Texas. I'm singing this one for Willie today because he asked for it. I'm tired of drinking your muddy water, baby. I'm tired of sleeping in your hollow log. I'm gonna take up with a stranger. I'm gonna get myself a fast-moving dog. Goodbye, you empty closets. True love of 7 years. I'm on a southwestern pilgrimage to be a frontier sonneteer. Goodbye, you auctioneers and you guillotine racketeers. I'm looking for a holy man out here on the old frontier. I'm gonna take along a lady who ain't never been in the mountains before. I'm on a southwestern pilgrimage where the middle class can't hunt me down no more. Should have been a gypsy all alone, and I know that now. But I got slowed up, I let a city woman drag me down. And the contracts and the circus acts made it so I couldn't relax anymore. But my stomach never hurts me much when I'm sleeping on the floor. That old buzzard's flying all around my same old Texas sky. And I take that as a sign it's time to either lay me down or fly. So it's out of my house and it's into my trucking clothes. I'm on a southwestern pilgrimage where the wheel stops, nobody knows. Then I moved to New Mexico when things in Colorado got to be a little too predictable for me. and lived down there for a long time. As long as you live in New Mexico, you can always be a maverick anytime, because it's a maverick place. But I was also coming back around to the things my parents taught me and my grandparents taught me. So I started putting out country songs that were about people sticking together instead of splitting up. My parents were married for 62 years, and everybody around me had a marriage that was falling apart, including me. And I just thought, that generation of people are so incredible. How did they keep it together through children in the Depression, and then World War II, and then Korea, and then Vietnam, and all the economic ups and downs? We're really nothing but a bunch of whiners in this generation compared to them. And I know it's all about the future and the next generation of gathering people and stuff, and that's our theme this year, and I totally support that. I have two people. Well, I have one person in my band who's 18 and another one who's 23, and the oldest is me, 68, and we have 60-year-olds all the way down to 18-year-olds in the band. So I'm into that, but let's don't ever forget the incredible generation that really founded and started this thing. Let's don't forget those generations either. They're the kind of people who kept marriages together, threw down the plow, went and fought for our country under the American flag, beat the Germans, beat our enemies, and came back and kept on taking care of cattle and plowing. Bought a beautiful diamond ring, offered it to the sweetest thing I know. Said she would take it. Started making some wedding plans. She looked at me and she took my hand and she said, "Do you think we can make it?" Said my granddad's still in love, my grandma. My dad still thinks my mom is the sweetest thing he ever saw. Come from a long line of love. When times get hard, we don't give up. Forever's in my heart and in my blood. Come from a long line of love. Years went by and we had a son. Now he thinks that he's found someone for him. They're planning a wedding. Called me up on the phone today just to hear what I had to say to him. Did I think he was ready? I said what his grandfather used to say to me. It's been handed down for ages. It runs in the family. You come from a long line of love. When times get hard, we don't give up. Forever's in my heart and it's in your blood. You come from a long line of love. Just remember, boy, you come from a long line of love. Including my grandparents, who were married for over 70 years. And this one's for them. Way before the sun comes up, already on his second cup, he's looking out across the open sky. Streaks of orange, pink, and gray wash over rows of new mown hay. The rangeland fills a cowboy's heart with pride. He rises slowly from his chair. His back is stiff, grays in his hair. Spent a lot of long days in the sun. He ain't one much to complain. He saddles up and he takes the reins and rides hard till his working day is done. You can see it in the eyes of every woman and man who spent their whole lives living close to the land. There's a love for the country, there's a pride in the brand, in America's heartland, close to the land. When the sun is high overhead, she's been 8 hours out of bed. She's still got a lot of work to do, pulling weeds and patching jeans and keeping faith when times are lean. Does a man's work and a woman's too. She'll run the tractor, water stock, fix the truck, then feed her flock. But somehow she gets roses from the ground. She ain't got a thing to prove, she simply does what she must do from early morning till the sun goes down. You can see it in the eyes of every woman and man who spent their whole lives living close to the land. There's a love for the country, there's a pride in the brand, in America's heartland, living close to the land. There's something that the people know who make things live and make things grow, deeper than the words of any sage. That unless you've touched this earth, planted seeds or given birth, the human heart can never come of age. You can see it in the eyes of every woman and man who spent their whole lives living close to the land. There's a love for the country, there's a pride in the brand, in America's heartland, living close to the land, in America's heartland, close to the land. 'Tis a gift to be simple, 'tis a gift to be free, 'tis a gift to come down where we ought to be. And when we find ourselves in the place just right, it will be in the valley of love and delight. And when true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend, we won't be ashamed. To turn will be our delight, till by turning, we come around. Bringing in the sheaves. Good Lord, we're bringing in the sheaves. We shall come rejoicing. There is a great American hero that we all look up to. When times are hard and chips are down, he knows just what to do. You see, a cowboy's got a set of rules that he lives by day to day. And if you ask for his advice, he'll more than likely say, if it's a fence, mend it. If it's a dollar bill, spend it before it burns a hole down in your jeans. If it's a load, truck it. If it's a punch, son, duck it. If she's a lady, then treat her like a queen. That's cowboy logic. Every cowboy's got it. It's in the way he lives his life, songs he sings. That's cowboy logic. Every cowboy's got it. He's got a simple solution for just about anything. Now an old cowboy and a young buckaroo were out working. They was riding fence. So the old man thought he'd test his kid on his working skills and common sense. He said, son, if you saw three men riding in the front of a pickup dressed alike from boots to hat, could you tell which one was the real cowboy just from where he sat? Well, the kid, he scratched his head a while. He said, oh man, there ain't no way to know. The old fella said, son, on this outfit, you got a long, long way to go. You see, the real cowboy's the one who sits in the middle. He ain't just there by fate. 'Cause first of all, he don't have to be the designated driver. And then two, if he's sitting in the middle, he don't have to get out and open the gate. That's cowboy logic. Every cowboy's got it. It's in the way he lives his life, songs he sings. Snow on the Spanish peaks that morning. Summertime was coming to an end. Took a long and lonesome ride to Dalhart to try to say goodbye to my old friend. He was happy drawing wages as a cowboy, and he lightened up my campfire with his song. Took a long and lonesome ride to Dalhart when the grass turned brown and fall was coming on. Oh, that long and lonesome ride to Dalhart when it's time to bring summer cattle down. Board up the shack, blow out the candle, get on down to the panhandle. Time for getting down to winter ground. Took a long and lonesome ride to Dalhart. I thought about the way he lost his life, working over in a Kansas feedlot, when he left behind 3 children and a wife. Nobody knows exactly how it happened. He was all alone when that big horse went down. He took a long and lonesome ride to Dalhart when his partners brought him home to winter ground. Oh, that long and lonesome ride to Dalhart when it's time to bring summer cattle down. Board up the shack, blow out the candle, get on down to the panhandle. Time for getting down to winter ground. Took a long and lonesome ride to Dalhart. There was hundreds at the church when I got there. 6 strong cowboys with long black coats and black hats, walking slowly as the fiddler played an air. And the preacher said, this young man just changed horses, boys. Now he rides a white horse for the Lord. He took a long and lonesome ride to Dalhart, but he kept on riding till he crossed the Jordan Ford. Oh, that long and lonesome ride to Dalhart, when it's time to bring summer cattle down, board up the shack, blow out the candle, get on down to the panhandle, time for getting down to winter ground. Oh, that long and lonesome ride to Dalhart, when it's time to bring summer cattle down, board up the shack, blow out the candle, get on down to the panhandle, time for getting down to winter ground. Now he's leaning, he's leaning, safe and secure from all alarms. Jesus was the pickup man, he's leaning, Lord, he's leaning, leaning on the everlasting arm. You know, they did the favor of putting a clock for me on the stage so I could see where I am in my set. But these footlights are so bright, I can't see the clock. So I don't know what time it is. If you could bring up the stage lights for a minute, I can see what time it is down there. Time to quit. So do I get a 10-minute warning? Is this the 10-minute warning? Oh, I have 15 minutes left. Whoa! I forgot that this great Hawaiian band that's going to play at 1 o'clock, they did their sound check early today so that we'd have a little bit more time. So let's give them a big hand. Thank you so much, guys. By the way, Dan and his crew, the sound people, and the people that have done the lights have really been great to work with this year. I think it looks great, sounds great up here. Let's give them a hand. Yeah, I'm polishing the apple. You can bet on it. Well, let's see. There's no way I can do all the cowboy songs I want to do and all the pop songs and all the country songs, but I've given you a little bit of a background of what got me here. It was in 1989, early 1990, that I released my first album of cowboy songs, and I've kept on going since then. I put out 6 of them, and then I just put out my 4th bluegrass album, which is called Buckaroo Bluegrass, which is a cowboy's take on bluegrass. And I've had a lot of fun with that. But to fast forward on this a little bit, I'll sing you a song from the new album. It's called Red River Drifter, and it is a hybrid between bluegrass and cowboy music. Turns out they have common roots. Most bluegrass music comes from the Celtic music of North Carolina, South Carolina, and the Mid-South, where Scottish people and Celtic people settled in the Tennessee hills. And they took those old melodies, and then the same thing happened out west, where they took a lot of Irish melodies. And that became known as what we call hillbilly music. And then later, Western music. trouble always comes around this old hard scrabble town. Just about to come apart at the seams, but we pick up the slack. We got each other's backs with hard work and faith and hard scrabble dreams. Sometimes it comes down like a fountain on hard scrabble mountain, and sometimes the flow is mighty weak. When the sun burns on high, it sure gets hot and dry. There's always a little water in hard scrabble creek. Daddy worked this ground from sun to sundown. Mama found a way to make ends meet. Lord only knows it was a hard road to hoe, with hard work and faith and hard scrabble dreams. Sometimes it comes down like a fountain on hard scrabble mountain. Sometimes the flow is mighty weak, but when the sun burns on high, oh, it sure gets hot and dry. There's always a little water in this old hard scrabble creek. Like the prodigal son, I left home on the run, but my rebel pride soon came undone. And Mama sure was surprised to see the tears in my eyes when I asked, is it too late to be baptized? And in the country, we didn't have a baptismal. Just baptized people in the water in the creek. So Mama said, well, son, sometimes it comes down like a fountain on this old hard scrabble mountain, and sometimes the flow is mighty weak. When the sun burns on high, sure gets hot and dry. There's always a little water in hard scrabble creek. It's not too late to be baptized in hard scrabble creek. There's always a little water in hard scrabble creek. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Ernie Seitz. Bluegrass is a big part of my upbringing. East Texas is where the rubber meets the road between country and western music. and we played a lot of hillbilly songs. And banjo was one of my first instruments. Still like to play banjo, but it doesn't work too good solo acoustic to play banjo, in my opinion. So Ernie agreed to come out here and play guitar on this piece. And please make welcome Ernie Seitz, one of the great cowboy singers ever.
Thank you. You know, they wanted me to let everybody know that not only do we have this wonderful audience, they have a YouTube internet audience right now out there in the world too. So we're going right now. Like the city grass, curvy, smooth and green, choking collars and theaters, wagons ran on gasoline. But me is horse and saddle, not a day without a change, and the desert sun blazing on 100 miles of rain. Just riding, desert rippling in the sun, mountain blue along the horizon. I don't envy anyone when I'm riding. When my feet are in the stirrup and my horse is on the bust, from his hoofs lightning's flashing from a golden dust, and the bawling of the cattle come drifting down the line, then a better life than riding would be mighty hard to find. Just riding, cracking long streaks through the air, stirring up the baby cyclone, ripping up the prickly pear when I'm riding. I don't need no art exhibit when the sunset does its best, cast an everlasting glory on the mountains of the west. And your robberies seem foolish when the night bird sings his tune, and the desert silver mounted from the touches of the moon. Just riding, who could envy kings and sires when the cows in the valleys are howling at the stars when I'm riding. When my earthly trails ended and my final bacon curled, and the great roundup is finished on the ranch house of the world, I don't want no harps or ales or other dressed up things. Let me ride the starry ranges on a pinto horse with wings. Just riding, nothing could be quite so well as rounding up the sinners that had drifted out of hell. When I'm riding, cracking long streaks through the air, stirring up the baby cyclone, ripping up the prickly pear. When I'm riding, when I'm riding. Thank you. Great job.
Well, thank you so much, Ernie, for coming out and doing that. Ernie and I are playing across the street tonight, and we have been every night having a jam session over there. People are stopping by, and we just get up and play every old hillbilly and cowboy song we know. It's a blast. And that's over at JR. It's just pretty much almost right across the street, kind of kitty corner. And we do allow people to dance and have a few Guinnesses at the time. We want you to have fun while you're here. And we get way too serious about this thing, I think, sometimes. And I'm the first one to plead guilty on that. I took it so seriously for so many years. And then I realized that my parents and my grandparents went out to hear cowboy music so they could dance with each other and have a little bit of fun and violate the Baptist church by drinking a couple of beers. So I come from a long line of margarita drinking Baptists. Margaritas are not considered, outside of, well, they're not considered a sin to drink a margarita, So you know what my last song's going to be? It always is, pretty much. Of course, I put it out way before I ever discovered the Cowboy Poetry Gathering, but I'm awfully glad that the song I'm best known for is about a horse. And it's kind of a ghost story from the West. After I discovered the gathering, I discovered a little book about Utah cowboy poetry that Hal Cannon edited. And I found this poem in it. And when I made the second recording of this song for Capitol Records, I made a number of versions. I put this poem in front of it. Old horse, your days are numbered. Your race is almost run. But I wouldn't sell or trade you because of the things you've done. Just what I'm going to do with you sure has got me treed, but I promise you, nobody will ever round you up to be dog food or chicken feed. You who used to be so toppy, so pretty, so proud, so grand. Well, you're called a public nuisance now by the folks who run this land. They say away with useless horses almost makes me weep. Away with useless horses, make a little more room for sheep. And I apologize to my Basque friends, but that's what the line said in this one. I think sheep are great. But this was written by an old timer from Utah about 100 years ago. Away with useless horses, it almost makes me weep. Away with useless horses, and I guess these days they'd say, just put them all to sleep. And you got yourself a bad ankle, old horse, running the last wolf off this range. And now some folks say they'd like to run you off too. My God, some folks are strange. But I'm going to hold on to you. I think I'll find us a pasture over yonder on Bitter Creek. And there we'll both hang around getting fat and slick. Yes, away with useless horses. Useless old horses, if you please. Hey, they're never going to see that old bad ankle of yours, old horse. As long as you're on this ranch, you're going to be in grass that's way up past your knees. She comes down from Yellow Mountain on the dark flatland she rides. On a pony she named Wildfire. A whirlwind by her side on a cold Nebraska night. say she died one winter when there came a killing frost, and the pony she named Wildfire busted down the stall. In a blizzard he was lost. Ran calling wildfire, calling wildfire, calling So by the dark of the moon I planted, but there came an early snow. There's been a hoot owl howling outside my window now, 6 nights in a row. She's coming for me, I know, and on Wildfire we're both gonna go. We'll be riding Wildfire, riding Wildfire, riding Wildfire, on Wildfire we're gonna ride, gonna leave, side busting behind, get the hard times right on out of our minds. We'll be riding Thank you.
Michael Martin Murphey. Never sounding better. Well, thanks so much for coming, everybody. Stay warm and please exit to your right. Thanks again.